On that point, let's speak to Trevor Kavanagh, political commentator who just always has his eye on the topical ball. So, Trevor, good afternoon to you. Sorry about that brief rant there, but I'm just looking at the strange world which you will be aware of. You've been a journalist for many years in print. You know what it's like. You see a story, somebody tells you something, you source it, you double source it, you triple check it, you do all of those things. You don't just write stuff before you know, but sadly, the parallel world of social media has different ideas these days.
I think so. And by the way, I enjoyed your rant, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
I think there are several problems here. First of all, these extreme right-wingers, in fact, they're probably just drunken ignoramuses who just want to punch up in a pint. They've discredited the whole process of free speech. This is not free speech, and they have actually demonized those who have a legitimate view about multiculturalism and mass uncontrolled immigration. As a result of which, of course, that sort of problem of equivalence is being promulgated so that those who do have a view are being lumped in with the Tommy Robinson thugs who are giving us all a bad name. That doesn't in any way detract from the arguments that we have, which is that multiculturalism has failed. It may be totally irrelevant when it comes to the ghastly slaughter of these innocent children, but on the overall picture, it has failed. The second thing, I think, is that social media is a ghastly phenomenon which is destroying our way of life here and across the whole world. As you say, some of these people are ranting from some bedroom tucked away in Oregon or somewhere in America, commenting on our society and inflaming people over here who don't bother to check their facts properly. Or perhaps aren't quite capable of doing. I mean, there are a lot of very, very stupid people out there, and they are easily gulled into thinking that they've got a proper justified grievance when they haven't.
Well, talking of things that don't add up and stupidity, let's look at the current Labour government, shall we, Trevor? The Chancellor, of course, now confirming that taxes will rise in October, as we kind of already thought. This is to plug that £22 billion hole in the public finances where Rachel Reeves had to be resuscitated. She was so shocked, apparently, to discover this, even though, spoiler alert, we know she already knew what it looked like. She spoke to a podcast on this point, and she said she must commit to Labour's manifesto to balance day-to-day spending by tax receipts. Have a listen to this.
We are ambitious, and what I say...
Look, I think that we will have to increase taxes in the budget, but we're now
sticking to your... And let me and you're sticking to your commitment of no rises in national insurance, income tax or VAT.
We had in our manifesto a commitment to fiscal rules, to balance day-to-day spending through tax receipts, and by the end of the forecast period to get debt down as a share of GDP. Those are sensible fiscal rules to keep a grip of the public finances. We also made other commitments in our manifesto, not to increase national insurance, VAT or income tax for the duration.
Oh, I could listen to her all day, Trevor. Well, what a beautiful voice. That's Rachel Reeves, the robotic Chancellor, Ripper Reeves, as she's now being called. There are many other names out there as well. Look, I know it's an impossible task when you have that gig, and we also knew that tax rises were coming, but it looks as if they're going to be pretty substantial.
I think they are, and they always were going to be before they won the election, to be absolutely honest. And I think that the Labour government is being found out very, very rapidly, as I suspected that they would be, but faster, in fact, than I thought, because I thought that they probably would try and give the impression that they were actually good economic managers despite their long, long record of profligate spending and exorbitant taxation. They haven't even bothered to try. Very straight into the first few days and weeks of the Labour government, Rachel Reeves has accused ex-Chancellor Jeremy of lying. Well, I think that that's a most unparliamentary expression, but I think it really does not do justice to the former Chancellor, who I think is actually an honest man. And what he and the government of the last few years have done is put everything on an open format through the Office of Budget Responsibility. So every politician, and indeed every member of the public, can find out exactly what the shape and condition of the public finances are. I think that Rachel Reeves has done herself and the system of government a huge disservice by pretending that there's a £22 billion black hole and then dishing money out to the public sector unions, 9.5 million without a single promise to reform or make themselves more efficient.
Let's move to another bastion of political wisdom in the Labour Party. This time it is, of course, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister. She's outlined her vision to build 1.5 million homes by reforming current planning systems. She told Parliament the country was facing the most acute housing crisis in living memory, but the government has an ambition to solve the problem. Here she is.
We are ambitious. And what I say won't be without controversy, but this is urgent, because this Labour government is not afraid to take on the tough choices needed to deliver for our country. These are the right reforms for the decade of renewal the country so desperately needs, and we will not be deterred by those who seek to stand in the way of our country's future. The honourable members opposite may say this cannot be done, but I say that once again, I'll prove them wrong. This government will build 1.5 million homes that are high quality, well designed and sustainable.
Well, there it is. Angela Rayner's going to make it happen, but only by essentially obliterating current rules and regulations. I mean, that may be a good thing. Good luck to anybody who can build 1.5 million homes over a course of about 4.5 years or so, Trevor. We've always known planning permission is a tricky area. The whole NIMBY argument kicks in, etc. Can Ange and her big team over there at the Housing Department make it happen, though?
Well, I suspect they can, and if they really want to, the government has enormous powers. It can rip up rule books and give high-speed sort of preference to house building. What worries me is what all this will look like after 5 or 10 years of Labour government. One of the things that's emerged from the Angela Rayner plans is that they're going to build huge new housing developments, and she promises they are well built, but I really do have my doubts. And I think what we're going to see is an awful lot of little boxes which rapidly turn into slums and ghettos. And an awful lot of those homes are going to be required for the huge numbers of people who have come into this country illegally and who will rapidly be given visas. So we're going to get automatic, almost instantaneous ghettos. And they're going to be built alongside some of the nicer suburbs, quite deliberately. I mean, this is class war. This is rather spiteful politics of envy. So you're going to have your noses rubbed in it if you happen to live in a pleasant area, which they're deliberately focusing on, in which to build as many of these homes as possible. I just think that we're going to deeply regret this in a few years' time when we look back and see this ghastly urban sprawl where that problem I mentioned of multiculturalism will raise its head again in a seriously detrimental way for this country.
Yeah, I sense you're absolutely right. And you've only got to look at the amount of people stuffed in hotels, Labour with their, all not in name, but amnesty credentials around this particular area, almost breathtakingly silent on record numbers of people coming across the channel. So you wonder who will be the first recipients, or certainly prime recipients of any new homes, and what will those homes look like too. Well said, Trevor, on that point. Let's go to this final story. I thought, man alive, this is like you could have written this, really. The leader, a leader of the British Medical Association, has said that junior doctors should prepare to launch a new range of strikes next year when Labour's honeymoon ends. This is Robert Lawrenson. He's the co-chair of the Junior Doctors Committee at the BMA, told colleagues that the next window of opportunity is about 12 months away, and this, of course, comes after the announcement that the government agreed a 22% pay rise to stop the striking. And there lies the problem with giving a fat, big bonus to anybody, frankly, Trevor, in the public sector, because they're only going to come back for more.
Yes, indeed. When you dish out a no strings attached multi-billion-pound payout to doctors, nurses, and indeed, as we will see, a whole queue of others, including train drivers already on very, very good earnings, without any strings attached, no requirement on productivity or any other improvements in the services they provide. What do you expect? What you get is a whole queue of other people who think, we'll have some of that.
Yeah.
And that money is being dished out, as I say, with nothing in return. So I predict that we're going to have a huge rise in our national debt, a huge rise in income tax, and not just income tax, but variations on tax that we haven't even thought about at the moment in order to pay for this. And in the end, we will have a Labour government one day leaving office, perhaps not for quite a while now, unfortunately, the way they rigged the votes, and they will bequeath to the nation a terrible debt.
I think you're right, and I can only sense as well, Trevor, that this is something that will happen across various areas of the public sector as well. We are starting with this booster payout for the doctors, but who knows where this one goes next. Trevor Kavanagh, thank you, sir, as ever. Always great to get political commentator and former Westminster bigwig over there when it comes to political punditry.